now, as your 2015 Players Champion is on your right, and Hunter Nance, a player who did play in the 2015 Players Championship, is on your left. Both these players 11-3. Winner is playing later this evening. And don't forget, you at home, yes, you, if you're a subscriber to twitch.tv/SCGTour, you get to decide our quarterfinal matchup. So make sure you do stay tuned for that as we make our way through round number 15. Nance is going to be on the play. He'll start off with an Oath of Nissa off the Basic Forest. He'll find a Basic Forest for Jim Davis. It's a Sunken Hollow as he passes the turn back. Nance now with a second Forest and a Sylvan Advocate. Davis will untap and draw. And we'll see if he's got some counter magic and removal spells getting ready to rock and roll here. I talked to Davis a little bit during that deck tech, asked about Fatal Push, and he said, I don't really have any ways to revolt it, so I look at it more of as a shock or a disfigure, something of that nature. So it's a clean answer to Sylvan Advocate.
Yeah, and he's only playing 2 copies, but one of the easiest ways for this deck to lose, Jim's deck, against a wide range of opponents is just someone goes 1-drop, 2-drop, and he's on the draw, and without a card like Fatal Push in your deck, that can just be the whole game. So it's not the best card on his list, but I think it's a necessary evil.
Here's another copy of Oath of Nissa here from Nance. Talked to Jim as well during that deck tech, and he told me Planeswalkers are a problem. Gideon, Nissa, those are issues. Hopefully I can counter them in time. Hopefully I can, basically manage them as best as possible. That's where the Ruinous Paths do come in. He said he wished he had a counter spell like Clash of Wills.
Yes,
something
that's easy to break serve with. He's got to be really happy with this opening here from Nance with, no Thraben Inspector on 1, a 2-drop that he was able to answer. Now on the 3rd turn, maybe Nance is adding the board, maybe not, but it's not Nissa on turn 3. Now Jim gets to untap, he gets to make his 3rd land drop, and that opens up all of the counter magic that he has for Planeswalkers.
Nance will play a Lambhold Pacifist and simply pass the turn back now over to Davis. Davis will untap. And Davis will draw. Lambhold Pacifist, if the format's going to look like this, with a lot of these control decks, if you can slide that in underneath the counterspell wall, it looks like it's pretty good.
So we've seen a lot of reactive decks where this card's a bit of a problem. You definitely get more than your money's worth for the 2 mana. It's also one of the very few creatures in green that can enable Heart of Kirin for 2 mana.
The Pacifist is now going to transform into Lambhold Butcher, so it's a 4/4, and it is ready to get into the red zone. Here's the second. We'll see an attack here from Nance. There he is. In for 4 here against Davis. Davis is going to fall down to 16. Does Nance have land number 4 and a Gideon? That's the big test, as you mentioned.
And if he has it, is he even willing to cast it? He may try to add to the battlefield with other stuff, force Jim to tap out and eventually react, and then sneak the Gideon through.
Well, he does have a Gideon, but he's not going to cast it. He's going to play Thraben Inspector instead. Inspector will resolve. Clue on the way. And now Davis will just have to draw a card. He picked up a copy of Negate, and not what the doctor ordered.
That right there is a big win for Nance. To be able to add to the board and have Jim burn off his 3rd turn. Because a lot of what this blue-black control deck is going to come down to is, can Jim efficiently spend his mana on turns 3, 4, and 5, answering the board, trading off cards, to allow cards like Glimmer of Genius or Torrential Gearhulk to eventually pull him ahead. And Jim having to just do nothing on his 3rd turn worth of mana, that's a big win for Hunter.
Hunter will sacrifice a clue. He will draw a card. In for 4. Let's make it 5, actually, from Nance. Davis is going to fall down to 11. And there's a Canopy Vista. Now here's a Sylvan Advocate.
I would be shocked here if Jim didn't counter this.
Gotta counter something.
He's opening himself up a little bit here for Nissa. But he can't just burn off 4 mana again. He's got to do something.
There's Disallow. And now is it time for Nissa? No, it is not. So Hunter Nance will only be able to pass the turn back. Davis will draw. Not a black source of mana for the Kalitas or the Ruinous Path and potential murder that he has in his hand. So things getting a little bit difficult here for the former Players Champion.
Only 1 copy of Blighted Fen, but a pretty big cost right now.
Oh, yeah. He might have to go to Jason Raveler of Secrets and just bounce something here.
I mean, on the table, Jace, Unraveler of Secrets, and Bounce doesn't look that bad because you have a Jace left over with 2 loyalty against 1 power on the battlefield. But the shields are down, and if Hunter has been slow rolling something like Gideon, like Virtuous Gearhulk, it's really bad.
And Jace, Unraveler of Secret starts on 5 loyalty. You bounce the Butcher, you bring it down to 3, maybe Threadman Inspector checks it, brings it down to 2. But like you said, that's not horrible.
Still clean.
Yeah. That's exactly what Davis is going to do. But you can also see the effect that Lambhold Pacifist has on the game.
It's a lot of pressure against these reactive, kind of do-nothing control decks.
Nance will draw a card. Copy of Westvale Abbey. He'll play a Plains here. Now's time for the Gideon. And that is resolved, and that's going to cause some problems here for Davis.
And so much discipline here from Nance to not cast that Gideon on the 4th turn of the game. And you can see the reasoning. He feels, and was correct. At some point, Davis is going to have to tap out on his own turn to play some sort of stabilizing play, whether it's a variety of sorcery speed removal spells, something like Jace, something like Cletus, and then you get your window to resolve Gideon. That's the real prize here.
Gideon looking pretty darn good right now. Nance is going to take a look at the Jace, Unraveler of Secrets, the scrying and the bouncing, all that good stuff. And the ultimate in this matchup probably doesn't play a role in things all that much. Jim just trying to use that as a way to stabilize and get to Torrential Gearhulk and friends. There's that Lambhold Pacifist again.
And now I think Nance trying to decide, is there really any value in trying to whittle down the Jace with this Raven Inspector, or should I just take my 1 point?
Looks like he's going to whittle down the Jace a little bit, bring it down to 2.
And I like this line of play here because, you know, there are sequences here where Davis decides what he wants to do is bounce again, and then he has to lose the Jace. If you attack Davis, then he gets to keep the Jace around.
And Davis has drawn another double black spell there in Grasp of Darkness. And you can see right now where the Blighted Fen in his deck is definitely land number 27.
Yep.
But
and who knows if it would be a black source of mana even if it was something else, right? But it is painful to have a colorless land right now when Davis is really saturated with double black spells.
So now if I'm Jim, I almost feel like I have to...
It's untap black mana or bust.
Yeah.
He even has to put Torrential Gearhulk on the bottom at this point.
All right, untap black mana.
Okay.
Sunken Hollow.
Now what can he chain together?
That's the question. And that's why you see him lean back in his chair a little bit and say, all right, how do I work my way through this? With a flourish. I almost feel like he's forced to go to Ruinous Path.
Well, if he's willing to basically give up on the Jace at this point, he could just play Cletus, assume that the Gideon will take down the Jace, and then untap and try to manage things from there.
Okay.
The issue there is if Hunter has a Stasis Snare, that's the end of the game.
Maybe you have to hope he doesn't have a Stasis Snare?
Well, the hope here, now you have the negate in hand on Davis's side that can protect you from a Planeswalker or Stasis Snare on the follow-up. And right now, Nance's board is not great against a Cletus next turn.
Well, also, Jim actually has a copy of Essence Extraction in his hand. So if we see something like running black sources from Jim, he's doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Nance has Westvale Abbey. No spell to play, though. So maybe Hunter Nance is almost out of gas.
Well, the problem here is that Jim's deck does not answer Ormondal all that well.
No.
We saw struggles with that earlier in the tournament.
Especially with his Jace in the graveyard?
Right.
Yeah.
That's his, like, kind of his one backdoor way of answering it in the first game.
Well, there is the old Blighted Fen.
That's a lot of work.
There is old Blighted Fen.
Yeah. Nance can't go to it straight away. He needs a little bit of a cushion here. And it's possible Blighted Fen will keep him off of doing it unless it's just lethal.
With the transformation on the stack, Essence Extraction is going to take care of the Lambhold Pacifist, so that's dead. Now Davis will draw. Can he find another black source of mana? Nope, just a Fatal Push, which may not be that bad. But he can't do anything with it right now. He's just got to leave Negate up. Nance is going to take a moment, make himself a little creature here with the Westvale Abbey. Pay 1 life to do it, of course, and now he's got 3 creatures, 2 to go there for Ormondal. Remember, it's a 1/1 white and black human cleric creature token. That's a mouthful as we head back over to Hunter Nance. Beat downs for 4. Davis down to 10. Does Nance have a play? He's got a forest. He's a reaching. He has Heart of Kieran. I think that's worth negating. Maybe.
Well, Davis still with Fatal Push in hand.
True.
The argument here for countering this is Nance's board does not do a lot against a Kalidas, and having a flyer is really valuable. The other side of that is, one, Davis has Fatal Push, and two, this negate is probably too valuable, either protecting the Kalidas or keeping a future Planeswalker off the battlefield. If he feels like he can kind of manage the Heart of Kieran just by racing with Kalidas, he should probably let it go. Also, if he draws another black source of mana, then he gets to play Kalidas with Fatal Push, and then it's really easy.
He gets to play Kalidas with Fatal Push and negate.
Right, yeah. Then he's in a really good spot there. My instinct, if I'm in Davis' spot, is I'm not negating, but Davis is going to go for it.
So what's tough here is for Jim. He's got plenty of black sources in the deck, but a lot of them actually on the battlefield tapped. So he's looking for basic swamp. There it is. That's what he actually wants to draw.
Now, my opinion of Davis's play a little bit corrupted there because I do know about the Stasis Snare, but I still think with Fatal Push in hand and a Kalidas to swallow up the board, you're at 10, I probably would have let the Heart of Kieran go.
Well, here's Kalidas. Jim will pass the turn back. Nance is going to make another 1-1. Jim is going to play Fatal Push to take care of the Thraben Inspector. And he'll get himself a zombie. And we'll make sure the Thraben Inspector in Nance's graveyard, I believe it should be exiled because of Kalidas. Just want to make sure that's the case here. Nance is immediately reaching for mana here to be able to Stasis Snare. There is Stasis Snare. Okay. Here comes an attack for 2, offering up a trade with the zombie if Jim wants to make it. I would have some interest in making it. Keep that life total as high as possible.
Give yourself as many draw steps towards Torrential Gearhulk as possible.
That's a prize.
Also try to keep him off of that critical mass of tokens needed to flip over the Westvale Abbey.
Yep. Davis drew a Choke Estuary, so he'll play that. So they pass the turn back. Nance will pay a life, make another 1-1 Human Cleric. He'll untap, and he'll draw. Hunter reaching, that's a big draw there in Oath of Nissa. That's going to resolve. Top 3, and there are some good ones for him to find. Rishkar counts.
Sure.
Good enough. Say that.
It's a lot of stats distributed well.
But whenever you're playing against Black Control, you know how it is.
Yep.
All this mana available. You run into a Torrential Gearhulk, could be horrible news.
But you're also potentially running into Torrential Gearhulk if you give him time.
Yep.
So, you know, really, what's one more token dead in the scheme of things? Got to try to attack here.
Jim's going to use the old Blighted Fen. Well, down goes a Cleric. Jim's going to fall down to 8.
So the upside here is that, you know, it protects his life total, potentially gives him an extra draw step to try to find Ormondal. The problem that I have with using the Blighted Fen there is now the coast is clear to go to Ormondal if the game slows down.
Yep.
Before, it's not just an issue of Hunter needs a creature +1 to be able to flip Ormondal. He has to play around potential removal spells in Jim's hand as well. So it takes a lot of cushion for him to feel safe going to Ormondal unless he's willing to risk it. Now, even if things slow down, even if Jim, let's say, finds Torrential Gearhulk the next turn, Hunter can pretty confidently just go to Ormondal and win the game that way.
Well, Jim is getting into this territory now where he's got to find Glimmer of Genius, I think. I still think that Gearhulk is good, but I think it starts with Glimmer of Genius into Gearhulk so that you can start doing that a bunch and everything. I think that's where we are. Here's Horribly Awry to take care of Ishkar. Here's an attack for 3. David's going to fall down to 5. Jim might have to use a Grasp here. Yep.
Once you use the Blighted Fen, you have to use the Grasp. Your play involves keeping your life total as high as possible to try to get to Torrential Gearhulk. That's the line he selected, so he's got to see it through. Also, Hunter's pretty clearly on empty anyway, so.
Yeah, we're just going to be doing this back and forth for a little bit until something changes. Hunter will make another Black Cleric. Draw a card. A lot of big draws here for Hunter Nance. Oath of Nissa certainly counts. It's another one. Hunter hoping this resolves. Jim with a negate says no. He's going to fall down to 3 from the attack, however.
Yep, cannot allow Nance to oath into a creature and have negate in your hand.
Davis, Island, nope. All set here. Hunter Nance going to win game number 1 here over Jim Davis. Green-white tokens up a game here with blue-black control, and it kind of hinges. Don't want to put it all on the negate on the Heart of Kieran, but it kind of hinges on that, because if he had Cletus that game, probably wins.
Well, it's very different. I mean, he's facing Heart of Kieran against a Cletus, so he's down in the air. It looked especially bad because he drew untapped black, so he would have had Fatal Push plus Cletus plus negate the following turn. Again, it's hard to say how much of my opinion is sculpted by the fact that I saw Nance's hand, but I think even just the damage race on the table was probably not worth a negate there, and the Cletus getting hit by Stasis Snare was ultimately the determining play.
Well, we're going to take a look at the sideboards here, and we will start with Jim Davis, who has 3 Dispel, 2 Kalidas, Trader of Get, 2 Ceremonious Rejection, 2 Fatal Push, 2 Deadweight, a Ruinous Path, the Sphinx of the Final Word, a Negate, and a Blighted Cataract. I like the additional copies of Kalidas, tell you that much.
Yeah, I think that's the game plan here is manage the Planeswalkers and use Kalidas basically to lock everything else up. I would expect the additional copies of Fatal Push and Ruinous Path to come in here as well. Probably extra Negate too, since Jim really is focused on stopping Planeswalkers.
For Hunter, he's got 2 Sram's Expertise, 2 Ajani Unyielding, 2 Blessed Alliance, 2 Natural State, a Lambhold Pacifist, a Thalia Heretic Cathar, a Fumigated Quarantine Field, a Stasis Snare, Fragmentize, and a Heroic Intervention.
The 2 copies of Ajani, just more Planeswalkers and more late-game staying power. I could see bringing in the extra copy of Lambhold Pacifist. He's got some dead cards in the matchup or close to it, so he's got some wiggle room here. I would also bring in the extra copy of Stasis Snare as the fight over Cletus, and to a lesser degree, a Torrential Gearhulk is really important.
Those are the options there for both players. Game number 2 going to be underway here between 2 players that did play in the 2015 Players Championship. So we'll keep this show rocking and rolling in just a moment. But let's talk about the SCG Tour Season 1 here in 2017. The Atlanta Invitational Weekend is where we kicked it off. Jacob Ball got the win there. That's why we've got the awesome Energy Reserve token. We're going to work our way towards a champion here over the next handful of hours. And the next weekend, we go to Richmond.
Yep, Richmond, and then the regional championships, which is Modern. You can go to go.starcitygames.com/regionals, find the regional championship closest to you. Then Team Constructed in Baltimore, Modern back-to-back in Indianapolis and Dallas, then Legacy in Worcester, Massachusetts, April 8th and 9th. After Worcester, we head on over to, we'll find out momentarily, Atlanta for Standard, Atlanta and Louisville, Modern in Baltimore, Modern in Charlotte, and then the Season 1 Invitational June 30th through July 2nd, Modern and Standard as the invitational formats.
We'll take a look at the exclusive playmats that are available for Standard. Go ahead, laugh it up, Patrick. Keep it together.
I'm trying.
Keep it together.
It's still so good.
Smuggler's Copter.
It just sticks to my ribs every time I see it. So good.
More proof that Star City Games and Wizards of the Coast are in cahoots.
Yeah.
They're in cahoots.
Look at these conspiracies.
Standard opening classic. You'll get yourself a Smuggler's Copter playmat. For Modern, it's an Aether Vial playmat. And for Legacy, it's a Gamble playmat. Free exclusive playmats available to everyone who plays in our Season 1 Opens and Classics. Come on down. You've seen the dates. Have some fun. Play some Magic. Take advantage of the opportunity here on the SCG Tour as we get ready to learn a little bit more about Hunter Nance, number 31 on our SCG Tour rankings right now. 23-year-old from Raleigh, North Carolina with 4 open top 8s. Played in our 2015 Players Championship. He's a big fan of computer science as he attends NC State. Only non-Magic related activities are video games, which I can approve of. And, well, you love cats.
I do love cats.
So, I don't know if you're obsessed with cats, but I can't remember the cat you were living with a couple of years ago.
Well, there's been a number of cats.
Yeah?
They're Sergeant Whiskers.
That's the one. Thank you.
Levi.
Yep.
Now Gwydion. Who else? Patches. There's a variety of cats over the
Sergeant
years.
Whiskers was the one I was thinking of.
Sergeant Whiskers.
Great name.
That was the one of all the cats that I have lived with. That's the one that I named.
I think that's pretty clear.
It was eventually just shortened to Sarge, but Sergeant Whiskers.
A great name for a cat. We can make a playmat out of that, I'm sure. Looks like Hunter's going to take a mulligan here down to 6. Jim happy enough with his 7. When you're playing these control decks that are based around Torrential Gearhulk, because we are no longer in the days of Counterspell and Mana Leak and these very clean answers, you have to pick and choose very correctly in order to take advantage of things. And Jim's got some answers that line up well. And some that don't.
So you need the spread, first of all, just because there's a variety of different threats you're trying to answer. And then you also want to spread so you have maximum flexibility with Torrential Gearhulk later on in the game. So a couple reasons to do it. That does mean often the control deck is caught up with the wrong answer to the wrong threat, and we've seen Jim and Ray Perez lose some games over the weekend to that. But they have also won some games because they're trading 2 and 3 mana for 4 mana plays. Yeah. It's cut both ways.
Looks like Nance is going to go down to 5. So not a great start here for Hunter. See if he can find a hand that he's happy with. Well, while he does shuffle, we'll learn a little bit more about Jim Davis, the 2015 Players Champion, a 32-year-old from Long Island, New York. Team captain of Team Metagame Gurus. Just got a deck tech done with him. So again, we'll have that for you guys. Maybe at the end of this round, we'll find out. But 11 open top 8s for Jim. Could be number 12 here. 2 open wins, 3 invitational top 8s, as well, most notably and most recently, in Atlanta at the end of last year. A DJ, a big fan of hockey, and one hell of a Magic player. Now, one thing to mention about Jim, last year during Season 3, the final 3 opens, he lost all of them playing for top 8.
Mm-hmm.
So he could have had 14 open top 8s, but he lost in round number 15 all 3 times, and this could be another one. I'm not trying to curse him. Just saying, round 15's closing time. He's had some difficulty. See, a Fortified Village revealing a Canopy Vista. Oath of Nissa brings along a Virtuous Gearhulk as we go over to Davis with a Swamp. Nance will draw. Picked up another Gearhulk. Pretty expensive hand here for Hunter so far. Also has a copy of Quarantine Field. The Canopy Vista will enter the battlefield tapped, and we'll go back over to Jim. Jim will draw. It's an island. He'll play an island, pass the turn back.
How many times do you think you've uttered that expression in your life doing commentary?
What's that?
Canopy Vista will enter the battlefield tapped.
Not as many as not as many as Port Town. So, I mean, a lot, but not as many as Port Town.
Port's closed.
Port Town enters the battlefield tapped more than Coastal Tower does. Here's a Swamp. He might just go to Kalidas right now. He's actually going to hold steady.
I think with an opponent on 5 cards and no board, Hunter just has to cast what he has. He has to play into all of Jim's reaction right now, and then, you know, you can eventually play cleanup with the Kalidas after the fact.
There's Nissa. I'm going to disallow that. Hunter has land number 4. It's a forest. Pass the turn back. Over to Jim we go, and Jim will draw. Ah, yes.
There it is.
The Submerged Boneyard. Kalidas pass that turn back over to Nance. Nance will draw.
Though he kind of wants to get the Kalidas into play now. One, because you've countered a Planeswalker. He's down one of them.
Mm-hmm.
You also don't want to tap out when Nance is on 5 mana, because if he goes land number 6 as Johnny your Kalidas, it's really bad.
That's
You want to protect it. So that's become a new flashpoint I've kind of watched this weekend.
Gideon plus a token. Davis will draw. Disallow. Play an island. Beatdowns.
I also think Jim wanted to play the disallow on curve to make sure that his Torrential Gearhulk had a target on turn 6, which is also now set up.
Mm-hmm. Getting down to 1 counter. See how Nance wants to continue to manage this board here.
I mean, this is not where you want to be, right? Is the not really ahead on the board against 6 mana.
Nah, I wouldn't want to be there at all. Torrential Gearhulk. Goodbye Quarantine Field. Nance will make another Night Ally. And Jim is going to untap. He'll draw a card. Picked up a copy Negate. We're going to see him grasp a token, kill a Gideon, I think. Yep. And with 2 counterspells ready, one of them, which is Negate, the other one, Disallow. I don't want to say it's over, but it's going to be real tough.
Also 8 points on the table.
Yep. It's going to be real tough here for Hunter.
And what's interesting about this is, you know, Hunter is likely to lose this game with spells in his hand.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so much that he mulliganed to 5. That obviously matters a lot. But it's more that he just didn't do anything for the first couple turns of the game. It's really informative of just what happens if Hunter has to say go or just cast Oaths for the first couple turns of the game, and it allows Davis to go, all right, 3 mana with no board, your turn, or Kalidas against an empty board, your turn.
That's why the die roll matters so much, too.
Yeah,
just being on the play for Jim is such a big deal in this matchup.
And why the Fatal Pushes matter is this function of breaking serve. There's a lot going on.
Hunter going to tap 5 mana, play a Virtuous Gearhulk. See if Jim wants to Torrential Gearhulk or Torrential Gearhulk plus Grasp or Disallow. So what I think's happened here is Virtuous Gearhulk's going to resolve, and now Hunter's trying to figure out how he wants to spread the counters, and then Jim Torrential Gearhulk's his Grasp to kill whatever's going to be bigger.
I think he just kills the Gearhulk to get a zombie out of the deal.
Also fine.
Yeah.
2 and 2. There's Torrential Gearhulk. Grasp there. Get a zombie. And now there's a 4/4 Knight ally.
Yeah, and now this Knight basically just has to chump block.
Yep.
And Jim's leftover is cancel. So going to game 3 here in a moment.
Everybody in the club.
All right, so he has to chump block. So
yeah, which
okay,
doesn't matter which one.
It's just,
it's just lights out there. So Jim Davis going to win game number.
Don't think about it too hard.
Save your mental energy for game 3.
Yeah. Do not try to figure out this block. Just take the L and move on.
Jim Davis, Hunter Nance getting ready here for game number 3. Blue-black control, green-white tokens. Going to a third and final one. Both players going back to the drawing board. Do you think for anything in particular?
I mean, it's possible that, if Hunter maybe shaved out a couple of his early plays on the draw, that he wants him back in on the play. For Jim, I think Fatal Push might be a play draw sort of consideration. It's possible that when he's on the play, he's not so worried about getting run over by the beatdown draws, and he doesn't need all of his Fatal Pushes, but on the draw, he just needs to protect himself from Landhold Pacifist and Sylvan Advocate on the second turn. So those are swing cards. It can change a little bit. I think Jim is much more likely to have play draw biases on the cards he values than Nance, but it looks like Nance is going back to the sideboard too.
Okay. Well, let's talk the StarCityGames.com newsletter, shall we? It's a new year. It's a new channel here on Twitch, and it's also a new newsletter. It's still your source for Magic the Gathering news, and it is still free to sign up for.
Yeah, and there's a lot of content in there, including highlights from some of Star City Games' best articles, upcoming SCG tour dates and locations. You can find the nearest invitational qualifier or game night nearest to you. As always, an exclusive cardboard crack comic, and best of all, signing up is free over at go.starcitygames.com/newsletter.
We get ready here for game number 3 between Hunter Nance and Jim Davis. Green-white tokens, blue-black control for those of you who are getting ready for SCG Richmond next weekend, or Pro Tour Kaladesh in Dublin 2 weekends from now. You've got some decks to choose from here, I think. You throw in some Saheeli Rai combo decks, maybe some decks we've even forgotten about. And this format's looking pretty good. It's looking pretty good.
It is definitely new. The mixture of a very powerful set and bannings of several of the most influential cards, several of the most oppressive cards, it is definitely fresh. And we've seen a mixture of kind of, new decks, obviously Saheeli Rai being the top of the list, variations or derivatives of previous lists like green-white tokens or green-black tokens with Constrictor sort of becoming a thing now. We've had just 2 color control decks with counterspells and removal.
A lot of them.
Both Ray Perez and Jim Davis having very good runs with those sort of decks. How does the format ultimately shake out? That's going to be the question.
Yep.
But this has been a promising week 1. Certainly the combo deck looks good and it is a cause for concern. But, I think we're going to have a relatively diverse top 8. The games have been fun to watch.
I'm happy with what's going on here. I am. This is a format. This is something that I'm excited to kind of investigate, get a little look at. Both these players are going to take a look at their openers here. The big lean back in the chair here for Jim Davis. We'll see if he can find a hand that he's happy with.
Well, Jim has to be pretty selective on the draw, because that's a spot where his hands just have a fail rate against Nance curving out.
He's got to hope that Hunter doesn't have a ton of Planeswalkers. You mentioned it, and we saw it in game number 1. Gideon is a real issue.
Well, I think there's basically 2 issues. There's Hunter going 1, 2, 3, just curving out, and then there's Hunter gets a little bit ahead, forces Davis to tap out on his own turn or tap out inside of combat to manage things, and Nance gets to land a Planeswalker.
Davis going to go down to 6 cards. Let's see how we do. He's going to keep Scry to the top. Game 3, these players playing for top 8. Fortified Village, revealing Canopy Vista, Oath of Nissa. 1, 2, 3. Nance will take a look at his opening hand and figure out what he wants to take. He'll go with a really, really good Magic card.
And now a lot of the game is going to be warped around the fact that both players know that Nance has a Gideon in his hand. And now there's a lot more opportunity for bluffing on both sides of the table. That's a lot of public information to have.
Does Davis have the Fatal Push here? He does not. He'll draw a card. He's drawn Fatal Push.
So he has to leave up Negate for 1 turn, most likely, and take the hit.
Yep. He is certainly concerned with some non-creature spells. Pacifist in. Davis will take 4. It's actually a Butcher, excuse me. Follow-up is a Pacifist. Davis, no counterspell. Canopy Vista enters the battlefield tapped. And push.
So I'm not sure I like the push in this spot unless Davis is going to cast a spell on his own turn. Because he could untap, play a land, and say and push on his own turn. That prevents the other pacifist from flipping. Because he's cast a spell, and he has negate to check a Planeswalker.
I think it depends on what lands he has and what lands he draws.
So he had untapped land number 3. He could have played it and kept up negate. The other side of this now is that he got to play the Submerged Boneyard that he drew, which is a little bit of efficiency. But I think there was an argument there for just drawing and casting the Fatal Push on your own turn.
There's negate on the Gideon. Pretty important there for Davis. Davis will draw. Picked up a Swamp.
Because that pacifist wouldn't have been able to attack this turn.
Yep.
There's a lot of implications. It's a complicated scenario. There's a lot of things to weigh. But I think Davis might have just sort of instinctually just cast the Fatal Push because, it's the end of your turn. I cast an instant.
Yep.
And I think there might have been value in playing it on his own turn.
Here's him back for 4 more from the Butcher. And Davis going to fall down to 8. Nissa. I'm curious to see how scared he is of this card. Because right now Jim has Glimmer. He's got Disallow. He's got Ruinous Path, and he's got an Island. And this would be a really good turn to be able to Glimmer. Be able to find some things to turn this game around.
I would be concerned about not being able to cast the voice. It's very close. I can see letting it go. But since he has to answer 2 things on the battlefield now, that tilts me a little bit more towards just using the counterspell. It's also possible that Nance is on empty.
Oh, there's a Grasp of Darkness, and that's pretty helpful. So Jim will take a Grasp and a Disallow. He needs 1 more black mana to be able to play Grasp plus. The Ruinous Path of the draw.
We've seen this now a couple times. Davis's mana is a little on the sketchy side for a 2-color deck. Not because it's hard for him to necessarily cast his spells, but because he often gets into spots where it's hard for him to cast the 2 spells in the same turn that he wants to cast. Because he's double blue and double black the whole way through.
Yep. Nance will draw a card. Picked up a copy of a Johnny. Let's see where he's going to start. Sylvan Advocate. Huh.
I think Jim just has to use Counterspell Grasp this turn just as a consideration for volume of mana and colored mana situation. I think he just has to counter this and grasp something else. It almost doesn't matter what spell Nance casts.
Yeah, I think you're right. If Nance has, you know, like land plus Gideon, I was going to lose this game anyway.
Right, yeah. He can't just let this resolve and then not cast the counterspell this turn. It's got to happen.
Heart of Kieran, that's not the end of the world.
With Grasp in hand, certainly this is not a bad follow-up from Davis's perspective.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Grass is just going to kill the Butcher. That's what's happening here. You know, now he's going to, so he's going to Grasp there. Because Nissa ticked down.
So he removed a counter from Nissa to turn on Heart of Kieran, and now is minusing the Nissa to put counters on everything.
Yep.
And I think that's going to prompt the response here to get rid of the Pacifist. And now Nance is in a position where he can't even crew the Heart of Kieran the next turn. He's only got 1 power on the battlefield.
He's got the Nissa to crew it.
Oh, he still has Nissa to crew it.
So that's where things actually get tough because he can just go plus make a plant, crew. Plus make a plant, crew.
Yep.
And that's a 5/5 Heart of Kieran. So that makes things a little bit difficult. Now, as Jim quickly untaps, land 6 is very important here. And it entering the battlefield untapped is very important. Choked Estuary is not it. And the reason this is important because he can just go Ruinous Path on Nissa.
He's 3 across the board on his hand right now.
But now he has to cross his fingers and hope that, I don't know the worst card that Hunter can draw here. That untapped basic is not good news, that's for sure.
Yep.
Because now Hunter gets to push up the Ajani. Take a look at the top couple of cards. We're just that was what Jim needed to fade. And that's what Hunter needed to hit to be able to close this one out.
So there's still some hope here because he can kill the Ajani. Nance can only play 1 spell a turn. It is still possible for Virtuous Gearhulk to get this game flipped around, and that's what the draw step was. I think now with Davis at 1, it might be too hard.
He's got Torrential.
Yeah, if he had 2 life, if the plant wasn't lethal, I think he would have a chance to get this flipped.
Oh, I think this might be doable, right?
Oh, he has Torrential Gearhulk plus he has Fatal Push. The problem is that to cast the Torrential Gearhulk and get back Fatal Push, he has to allow Ajani to activate again and for Nance to resolve either Gideon or Torrential Gearhulk.
It's horrible news.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's bad.
Everything is a lot.
It's bad. Jim needed land 6 to enter the battlefield untapped. And Hunter needed to draw land 6. And Hunter needed land 6 to enter the battlefield untapped.
Right.
Now, Hunter had a ton of draws there. There were very few misses. He clearly hit one that mattered, but...
Yeah, any untapped land was good, and anything that gave him enough crew to turn on Heart of Kieran would be good.
Gideon, Nissa also
the Planeswalkers work.
Yeah.
He's drawing to...
The misses are like Fortified Village.
That's about it.
Yeah. The misses are very... Stasis Snare.
Yeah, Creature Removal or Fortified Village are really the only misses in that spot.
Yeah, there's a bevy of hits.
Oath of Nissa. I guess that probably yields something to crew up.
Yeah.
But it's almost his whole deck is good in that spot.
There's Gideon. I don't think Jim can fight over this. He just has to let this go.
Well, if he plays Gearhulk and counters, then he's dead on the table. So he's just got to pass and hope that there's a mistake for Hunter to make.
Hunter's going to turn on the Heart of Kieran. Now he'll attack. So Jim's going to get to Torrential Gearhulk. He'll get to push the Heart of Kieran, and he'll get to block the token. Now, again, it is worth mentioning. Ajani hasn't been used yet, and when Ajani kills Torrential Gearhulk, assuming it does, Jim gains life.
Right.
So we can't forget that because that actually matters.
The problem is that he's facing down both Ajani and Gideon.
No, I mean, it's horrible
But
news.
again, he's still not quite out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, if he rips off another Ruinous Path here, the board's pretty clean. I guess Virtuous Cure kills him. Forgot about that. That's still in the hand.
That's still a card.
It might just be too much. But I've really enjoyed Davis and Perez just swimming upstream with these control decks. It has not been easy.
It sure feels that way, doesn't it?
The easy wins have been, I got to the third turn and nothing too bad happened and my hands rolled up. But anytime the game's been like this, even when he's casting 2 spells a turn, even when he's resolving Torrential Gearhulk, it's still a slog.
Yeah. It doesn't feel easy ever. Nothing easy.
Nothing easy.
Yeah. Ruinous Path is going to go after Gideon. Okay.
All right, well, you counter hypothetical.
Yes.
You counter the Virtuous Gearhulk.
Yes.
Ajani misses.
Johnny misses, huh?
You untap and you have.
That's kind of a miss.
Ajani misses.
Okay.
All right, we're still going.
Okay. Hunter still has a lot of cards in his hand.
But we might be playing several more turns.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Let's see if Jim Davis can wiggle his way out of this. Hunter Nance is in a pretty good spot, but you know what I like here, it's subtle, but Hunter just sitting here and thinking the turn through a lot.
Yeah.
Which he should do. Here's Lambhold Pacifist. Jim could disallow here, but I'm sure Jim's thinking, I'd like to disallow the Gearhulk, not this thing.
Alternatively, he can say, all right, I can let this resolve. I can counter whatever the follow-up play is. If I cast Glimmer of Genius on my own turn, that prevents the Pacifist from flipping.
Yeah.
And then if I piece together an answer for the Gearhulk, and he misses with the Ajani again, you can talk yourself in.
You can, and that's what he's doing. Jim gonna fall down to 4. Draw a card. Sunken Hollows and land. There's the battlefield untapped.
Bit of a prize here. He's drawing, a lot of the best cards he's drawing to are 3 mana, so.
Yeah. Well, he's got to start here. Scry 2. Swamp. Fatal Push. Push, I think he has some interest in. I think. Yeah.
It's better than the average draw step. I don't know if it's enough.
Top and bottom. Hit 1, hit 2. Blighted Fen. I don't know.
Another piece of the puzzle, potentially.
He's over here building a mystery.
Yeah, this is, yeah. I mean, I think eventually the House of Cards is going to collapse here.
Well, yeah, Johnny will just miss again. It's fine, right? Yes. Just 1, 2, 3. See, there you go.
We're still going. We're still going. We're still going.
Yeah, Johnny's likely to just continue to miss. That's totally what's going to happen here.
The thing is, with the Virtuous Gearhulk resolving, as long as Hunter logically splits up the tokens, he still wins this turn.
Yeah, I think that's correct. Gearhulk.
He has to find some way to split the tokens in a way that Fatal Push is not enough.
It's pretty tough to screw up. Maybe, I don't know.
As long as he makes both of his creatures 4 power, he's good.
Yep.
But you can, you don't know.
You don't know. All you can do is you just play. All you can do is just play.
Yep. And then you just need, Gearhulk into perfects for 10 straight turns. And then you're probably 30% to win the game.
And that's all you need.
That's all you need.
Here's Fatal Push. Kill that. Put a counter on this. And he's dead. Hunter Nance is going to win this match here over Jim Davis. 2-1. Green-white tokens will defeat blue-black control. It was an entertaining one to see Jim try to climb upstream there. But number 31 on our SCG Tour ranking.